Hey guys, so it's here bringing you another video. Welcome back to another episode of League Discussion, the series I take your topics, rip them apart, my own opinions and experience, and encourage you guys to join in the conversation in the comment section below. So we've got 3 topics today, so hopefully you guys will enjoy this. And again, if you've got any responses, any other topics, please use the comment section. I'll be looking down there. I'll heart a couple of them if they're good. I'll reply to some if there's conversation to be had. So let's get into it. So the first topic and the 3 we're going to cover is, what is the difference between maining a champion and one-tricking a champion? What is good champion design? And what have been some of the best decisions Riot has made over the recent years? And what have been some of the worst decisions, in my opinion? And also that's where you can give yours. So the first topic is maining versus one-tricking. What is the difference? The basic premise is a one-trick is, I think, what even Riot say, because recently they've implemented a brand new rule. If you guys know how people become pros, one way is the scouting grounds. That if you're a top challenger player, you get invited to go to the LCS studio of your region, and pro teams get to watch you while you compete. They recently implemented a rule because they had the problem with it last season that a couple of one-tricks actually went and it was worthless them going. Well, now you no longer, I believe in the scouting grounds, are allowed to have any champions over 30% of your overall champion pool. So in Riot's definition of a one trick is if any champion of yours is 30% or more of your champion pool, they actually deem you as a one trick because, you know, there's a lot of games of one champion where they want their pros to be diverse. Because apparently what happened is a year ago, 3 or 4 whatever one tricks went, they got banned out and they were appalling, and the pro organizations are kind of like, why are they here? Like, what? So they are no longer letting one tricks allowed in, and that's what their definition is. You know, I think it's either 30 or 40% maximum of your games are allowed on one champion, and you have to have more than 2. You know, you can't just be 2. I think they want minimum. It was either 4 or 5 champions you have to play over a certain amount as well. So that's the official definition, but really the definition is something that you may not necessarily play all the time, but you'll always come back to, especially in important games. For example, let's say you're a Xerath main. So a lot of your games are on Xerath, but you play 5 different games. Like, right, you play 3 of them on Vladimir, 2 of them on Swain, but now you're in promotion series. You're going to jump back on Xerath because that's what you trust. That's what you'd probably call a main. It's your comfort pick. It's probably your most played champion, but not by a very large margin. You definitely have other champions you play, but you'd kind of go, yeah, I've used Xerath as kind of my bread and butter. He's my comfort pick. I will, you know, rely on him for those clutch games. You know, you're in promotion series, 1 win, 1 loss. It's the deciding game. I'm going back on Xerath. That's kind of a main. A one trick is somebody who basically solely relies on that one thing to climb. My personal definition is less like crazy than Riots. If Riot's defining a one trick over like 30 or 40% of overall games, that's for pro play. I'd probably determine you're a one trick if over 70% of your games are on one champion. If, you know, 70% of your games are on one champion, I'd probably say you're a one trick. Personally, and there are some people out there that go, no, it has to be 100% of your games are one champion, otherwise you're not a one trick. Nah. Again, I think a one trick is defined, but if one champion is 100% leading the charge on how you're climbing, then I would define you as a one trick. That's your biggest trick to climb, your one trick, personally. So yeah, I'd probably say that is you over 70% of your games are on one champion. That is the biggest thing you rely on. It's your best champion. Maybe your other champions aren't very good. That's what I would define. Where maining, let's say, you know, 30% of your games are on one champion and the rest of your games are spread out on a whole bunch. That would be a main, and you keep jumping back to it every now and then. For example, what would I call my main or mains? And again, here's the thing. You can have multiple mains. You can't be on multiple one trick. The moment that you say, like, someone plays only 2 champions, well, they're not a one trick, they're a 2 trick. It actually does work in that regard. Like earlier today, you may have seen it on the channel or by now, I don't know, but it may be upcoming. I played against somebody called Shen or Wukong. He only played Shen or Wukong. He's a 2 trick. If someone had they only played Aatrox, Shen, and Wukong, he's a 3 trick. There is such a thing as that stuff. And again, my advice is don't be a one trick, because they're the players that tend to get screwed the most. You can climb very quickly being a one trick. You can learn about that champion very quickly if you only play one thing, sure. But if you rely on only playing one thing and you continue that trend, what happens if it gets reworked or nerfed, or it's just completely terrible in the meta? Well, then you as a player suffer big time. Like, think of the people that one-tricked the old Gangplank before his rework, the old Galio, the old Akali. Well, those people, their whole champion has now gone. So if you, say, got Diamond playing only the old Aatrox, and now Aatrox is completely different with a different playstyle, there's basically no similarities, you're not really a Diamond player anymore. Your identity of being Diamond was the old Aatrox, and that is now gone. So you're going to struggle big time. Where if you're a main, let's say your main was old Swain, you're like, I got Diamond playing Swain, oh, he's getting reworked. Well, because it's just your main, you have other champions that you've always been playing. Okay, I don't like the new Swain, I'm just going to drop it. And it doesn't affect you as bad because you've always played other champs. You're not just playing one or two things. You've played abundance of stuff, but old Swain was your just main. So that's the difference. Next one is, what is good champion design? Good champion design is, I would definitely say, is a personal opinion. There are some people out there, and I will say there are a few people, but there are some people out there that believe Zoe is good champion design. And obviously the majority of the player base would disagree. And basically, again, I've done design, as many people know. I find good champion design to be, across the board, uncontroversial in most topics. It can be some, but it's basically just not a problem. Like, if a champion is constantly coming up as a problemed champion that the community is causing outrage, or they're overpowered all the time, well, there's something obviously wrong with the design there, because Riot should be balancing every single champion and designing every champion to be balanced. Like, that's the goal, right? Riot's ultimate goal is to try and make every single champion basically equal in strength and weakness. It's never going to happen, but that's the goal. So if you have a constant champion that is constantly in the discussion of negativity in the community, then there's obviously something happening there. And that's why Zoe, I will still to this day say she is the worst designed champion in the game. You know, because again, if you just break down her kit, she's got RNG, which is random number generator, so random events in her W. She has a, if you've been around for a while, Nidalee used to be a massive problem because she used to be a mid laner. And the idea of old Nidalee was her spear used to chunk people like Zoe's Q does. The difference is Nidalee's Q was longer cooldown than Zoe's Q, and it was less forgiving because Zoe's Q, you can actually like change the angle of it halfway through. Also, Zoe has the ultimate that extends the range, and furthermore, Zoe has her E that also roots people, like makes them go to sleep, which Nidalee never used to have. And by the way, Riot called Nidalee like unhealthy, so they got rid of that playstyle, and yet they introduced Zoe. So they have her having a sleep function, which then holds people still for the Q. And even if she misses that E, it's still actually a form of CC and discouragement that if you walk into the pool, you fall asleep anyway. So it's just an abundance of unhealthy game design that is just not balanced or not fun. It's very fun for the person that plays Zoe. And again, that's another way that you could probably define champion design. Is it fun for both the people that play it, but also play against? And if the answer to that is yes, then it's you know, not even if it's fun to play against, if it's okay to play against, that's fine. But Zoe is fun to play, I grant you, but it's not fun to play against. That's where it's unbalanced. So good champion design for me, and again, I would actually say is a champion that you probably don't see much in patch notes, but is still around, is still relevant. So they're just there. That they don't need to get changed much, but people still rate that champion. So the champion I'd probably say has one of the best champion designs in the game, Orianna. Orianna has very rarely been in patch notes. She's rarely buffed or nerfed. Yet you'll occasionally see her in pro play. You'll occasionally see her in solo queue because she is just good. She's just all round good. She's not controversial, and you need to be good at her to make her to work properly. Good champion design. Uncontroversial. Nobody has complaints about Orianna. And if people get, you know, if Orianna's got one-shots people, obviously she's got there because the player has managed to make that champion work rather than the champion simply being overpowered. That is what I define as good champion design. And whenever people ask me what is the best champion designed, and again, I'm not saying here that Orianna is the best champion in the game. That's not what I'm saying. As for a well-rounded champion design, Orianna is a very good example of that. But yeah, you can give other examples in the comments if you do come up with any. Now, the final one is Riot's decisions over the last few years. What have been the good decisions? What have been the bad decisions? Because there's been a mixed bag. You know, Riot Yeah, they changed again. One of the negative things that I will say that they have done is they changed the game too much. Sure, you could argue that because they changed the game so much, it constantly makes it feel new, which it doesn't. But that's why maybe League is so big. I question that because League was at its like biggest and maximum worth of climbing its player base in season 3 and 4, and it didn't change that much. The meta hardly got changed by Riot. The player base did it. The biggest change when Riot ever intervened was 2 times a year. Was at the beginning, in pre-season of a season, and in mid-season. That was it. Little things apart from that, but that was mainly it. And then it was up to the player base to determine everything else. So a bad decision I think Riot has done in the past couple years has intervened more. They should intervene less. So that's one. Bad decision obviously was dynamic queue. That whole season was just a joke. And they lost quite a few people. Again, we'll go negatives first. Another bad decision was the meta recently. A lot of people left. What else? Another bad decision you could argue, and again, this is where it's all personal opinion. The idea of doing role ranked, to me, is a very bad decision, but it does look like a good decision is happening, that they are thinking about not doing it. At least they're testing it more, because they're testing it more, I don't think it's going to actually go through. So that's mainly the negatives, to be honest. Those are the main ones. So yeah, they should intervene less, not more. Dynamic queue was a joke, and I actually think they should probably get rid of flex queue, is my personal opinion. I know there'll be some people that disagree with that, but I don't think it's worth having. And they shouldn't do row rank. Those are my 3. As for positive decisions, ticking off things that needed to get done, they've done quite a lot. You know, there was a meme list on Reddit a few years ago, like, you know, oh, Riot said they'd do a replay system since season 1. Well, that got done. Good on Riot. There's been an abundance of stuff that like they've just ticked off. The practice tool, even though it could be a lot better, that was good. Well done, Riot. Personal one that again doesn't really apply to you guys. Opening up more to YouTubers. I think that's a massive tick. Again, without going too much into detail, I get to know things early. If I wanted to, could basically prepare a patch note video more or less a week early, and I'd have it ready to go on the day of the patch notes comes out, but I prepared it a week ago because I know the patch notes a week before anybody else. You know, other YouTubers now, we get to know stuff a week early. I think that's a very good idea because a community of outrage, of change, is dangerous. So if you get the people who are the voice of the community, YouTubers, get them to know the information early, so they have time to kind of calm down if it's a bit controversial, and then make a rational video on the day that gets released. I think that's actually pretty good. I think that's pretty important. So personally, I think that's a very good tick in my box. And again, they've been involving us in more and more stuff. We've got events coming up with them. We're having more meetings with them. So of a personal, that is something that I think is a big tick. Because even people I've had meetings with Riot have admitted, yeah, we've been really bad not using any of you guys forever. We had a massive meeting with the whole of Riot, and yeah, we've decided to actually work with a lot of you a lot more. And again, you're not going to see all YouTubers work with Riot. I'm sure they're not going to work with any of like YouTubers who are toxic or who break the rules. You know, like the YouTubers that let people on different smurfs and different ratings. They'll never work with Riot because they want to promote a healthy community. Final one that I think is good, and again, it does tie in with that. Inviting new players. I don't think that's a negative. I think that's a good decision. You know, sometimes when the same people and only the same people are playing the same game for years and years and years, sometimes it gets a bit stale. We're having new people come into the game and they're doing a bunch of campaigns now to try and invite new people. I think that's a massive tick. I think that's what League needs. And then finally, a massive tick is Nexus Blitz as for a game mode. I think that's a great game mode. I think it's got a lot of potential. My only hope for that game mode is I actually do hope they'll be ranked. I'm sorry for Twisted Treeline players out there, but I think they should kind of scrap Twisted Treeline for Nexus Blitz. I think it's a superior game mode for the same concept. A more casual experience that's a bit more based about fun and team fighting, but not an ARAM. You actually get to pick comps. I think Nexus Blitz could be that game mode. The only caveat to that is obviously Nexus Blitz right now is a five-man game mode. 3v3 is obviously 3v3, so I don't know if they would change it to be 3v3 if they got rid of Twisted Treeline, but that's the way I'm thinking right now. But yeah, like, I think Nexus Blitz is a great decision. But anyway, that's going to be it. Probably a little bit of a shorter video today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed nonetheless. If you've got any opinions about what I spoke today, put them in the comments. Reply to anything. Leave more topics if you want to. But that's going to be it. If you guys enjoy, again, like, subscribe. See you guys next time. See you.